Have you ever bought fabric online only to realize that it's completely different than what you thought you were getting? Or maybe you're sad because the Joann's are closing and it's the only place that you know to buy fabric. Shopping for fabric online can be really scary, especially if you are not super familiar with fabric, fibers, content. All of those things are really important to learn. So stick around because I'm going to walk you through all of it. Now, if you love sewing content, make sure and subscribe, hit the little notification button so you never miss any videos. Shopping for fabric online can be really overwhelming and there are so many options. Now, I have a list of fabric stores that I shop online frequently and I have listed it below in the description box for you guys to download the PDF. Now that will help you to know that you're shopping from a reputable online fabric store, but beyond that, choosing the fabric can be a little tricky, especially if you don't know what it is or if you don't know if it's gonna work for your project, right? And that's really the key, is knowing what fabric is gonna work well for what project. So I'm gonna walk you through some tips and some things that you need to know in order to make online shopping for fabric much easier. So the first thing you should know, especially if you're new to sewing or just having to buy fabric online now because that seems to be your only option, there are some things that you should be aware of, like the back of the pattern envelope. So if you're working on a pattern, the back of the pattern envelope gives you fabric suggestions or recommendations. This is because the garment that is designed is made and designed for a specific type of fabric, right? You want it to drape or be structured or be flowy. And all of those things are taken into account when the pattern is being made. So we add the fabric recommendations to the back of the envelope to help you make an informed decision when you're looking for fabric. So on the back of the pattern envelope, depending on what you're making, you'll see a list of anywhere from 5 to 7 different options that you can use for that project. Now, if you're new to sewing and you're new to fabric, this is your best bet because you can almost rest assured that if you stick to the list, the fabric that you purchase is going to work for your project. Now, the next thing you need to know is how to check what the fabric weight and drape is. So how do we do that? Well, I'll give you one of my tips that I learned very early on. What I started to do was to go through my own personal closet and look through the clothes that I had purchased, my ready-to-wear clothing, and look at the tags so that I can identify what the content was. Is this 100% cotton? Is this a polyester blend? Is this a cotton blend of some sort? Is this a rayon? And that really did help me to understand what that fabric was going to feel like if I was looking at it online, as opposed to having a fabric store where you can go inside and feel the fabric. Now, this may come as a surprise, but I have taught hundreds of thousands of people how to sew. And one of the things, actually the main thing that most people find difficult is matching fabric to pattern. Now, if you're buying fabric, and even if you're in the store and you're feeling it and you love it and you think it's great, you might not necessarily know whether or not that's going to work for your project. You might like it, you might like how it feels, but if you don't understand weight and drape, it might still not make your garment look like it's intended to look. So understanding those things are really important. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of what I mean. The first one is understanding the drape, right? So this is a rayon fabric. This is a rayon fabric. As you can see, it falls onto itself. It's flowy and drapey. And this is 100% cotton. It's a little stiffer, doesn't drape quite as much, but still both are considered lightweight and both still work for things like dresses or tops. This is another 100% cotton fabric. It's a little lighter, but you can see that it sort of sticks out a little bit more like this one here, where this one drapes a lot more. So if you want a flowy dress, I would probably go with a rayon. If you were making, let's say, a shirt dress, a cotton shirt dress, then you might want something with a little more structure that holds a little bit more of its shape for things like the collar, or the sleeves, or the way that the shirt dress is intended to fall on the body. Then we have things that are very flowy and very drapey, like this satin fabric. This is very nice. It has a sheen on it, which I'm going to talk about Sheen as well. If you see me looking down, it's just because I want to make sure I'm in focus. So this is super flowy, right? This would make a beautiful slip dress. It's going to just drape over your body beautifully, but it is a little slippery. And if you're new to sewing, I never recommend starting with any fabric that is slippery. It's just going to make the process a little harder for you, especially if you are new. Then you have something that's more like a chiffon, for example, and we'll talk about opacity as well. But as you can see, this is really drapey as well, but it is pretty sheer, right? So we'll talk about sheer, semi-sheer, and what you should look for when you're reading the information that's given to you on a website where you're purchasing fabric. Now, the main thing, and probably the one thing that you learn very early on, is you have to know the difference between a knit fabric and a woven fabric. Knit fabric stretches, right? This is your t-shirts, your leggings, your bodysuits, your bodycon dresses. There's a variety of knit fabrics, and I'll show you a couple of examples of the different drape and weight of knit fabrics. But this is a knit fabric, super stretchy, whereas a woven fabric like a cotton does not stretch, okay? So if your pattern calls for a knit fabric, you cannot make it out of a cotton or something that has no stretch. Now, I won't get really into all the details because it's just a lot and might be second, third video, but they do make stretch wovens that have a little bit of stretch in the woven design that will give you a little bit, something like a stretch denim, for example, right? But if your dress is called for a knit, stick to knits, okay? If it calls for a woven, make sure you're getting a woven. Now, when we talk about, we were just talking about lightweight fabrics, your rayons, your cottons, your cotton blends, all of those things, your satins, your silks, your chiffons, those are all really drapey, really flowy, very lightweight. Now, if you're talking about medium weight fabrics, we're talking more of denim, okay? So this is a non-stretch denim. It's a medium weight. You also have linen, which is considered a medium weight, but that also really depends because we have tissue linen, we have all kinds of linens, right? And so you could get a very lightweight linen, or you could get something that's more medium like this, which has not as much drape. You can see it sort of just like sticks out. This is a medium weight linen. It is washed, so it is crispy, but it's not as stiff as some of the other linens. And then we have 100% linen that is a little stiffer, something like this. You can see that this is not falling or draping. If you made a dress out of this, like a shirt dress, this would be really great because it's going to keep its shape. Your collar is going to be nice and crisp. Your cuffs are going to be nice and crisp. This would make a really beautiful shirt dress. Now, if you wanted to make a fit and flare, this would also be very good because this is for sure going to give you that flare, sort of that shape that you want at the bottom of your dress. But then there's another variation of linen, which is like a linen blend. So this is one of my favorite linens. This is a viscose linen blend. This, as you can see, drapes a lot more than this 100% linen, right? This is a viscose linen blend, and this is 100% linen. So you can immediately tell if you're working on a skirt or a dress, do you want it to drape like this, or do you want it to drape like this? Okay, so understanding the difference is really important. Then we have a twill. So this is 100% cotton twill. Stiffer, more like a denim, has structure. Medium weight fabrics are great for more structured garments, jackets, pants, jeans, anything like that. But then we have something like a lyocell twill, right? Where it's a lot drapier. This would make really beautiful trousers or flowing wide leg pants. It's softer. And these are all considered medium weight fabrics. Then we have what we would consider our heavyweight fabrics, which are our wools, right? Our coatings. So this is a wool fabric. I would make a beautiful coat out of this. Or something like a canvas, which is very stiff. And I think I only really use canvas for things like crafts, handbags. You can make pants like jeans out of a twill. You'll have to wash it several times before it starts to soften up and loosen. But as you can see, it's very stiff. Now, if the fabric is too stiff or too flowy for the garment or pattern that you're sewing, it can alter the look of the design, right? And so it's really important when people say to me, oh, you always do such a great job of matching fabric to pattern. One, that's because I've been sewing a long time and I have learned fabric over the years. This is not something that you just learn everything all at once, and that's perfectly okay. But I'm gonna help you to start better understanding fabric and what to read on these websites so that you can make an informed purchase and not end up with something that is gonna completely change the pattern that you're working on and make the garment not so flattering. Now, I talked about the difference between wovens, non-stretch, and knits, stretch fabrics, and the difference between those. And then that there are also stretch woven fabrics, and that just means that spandex has been added to that woven fabric to give it some stretch. So like a stretch sateen, or stretch denim. You can even get like a stretch corduroy that has some spandex in it, some give, and those work really great. But then you have knit fabrics that are very different. You have very lightweight knits. You have linen knits, which is one of my favorite blends. You have bamboo, you have jersey, you have cotton, you have all kinds of knits. You have double knits and brush knits. It's a lot of stuff. But here are the main things to consider when you're working on a knit project and you want to make sure that you're using the right fabric. So the first thing you're going to want to pay attention to is the amount of stretch that's given in the pattern. So in the back, it's going to tell you how much of a stretch you need. Is it 50% across? Is it 30%? And that really depends on you. And honestly, I don't really fiddle too much on how much stretch my knit fabric has, because I know that for specific garments like a bodycon dress, if it doesn't have a zipper, I need it to be really stretchy. If it's a more structured knit like a ponte, that does have a significant amount of stretch, but it's heavier and denser in weight, then I'm gonna probably need to insert a zipper to get in and out of the dress. So let me show you the difference. This is a double brushed knit. It has a very soft sort of feel to it. This is probably one of my favorite knits to work with for several reasons. One, it's really soft and comfortable. It's really stretchy. It's really stretchy. But if you notice, when I stretch too far, you start to lose the color, right? You start to see that white in the background. So if you're making, let's say, a bodycon dress or leggings, you want to make sure that you're cutting the right size so that when you're wearing them, you're not super stretching your fabric, but you do want it to have enough stretch that it snaps, girl, onto your body, okay? Then you have something like a bamboo cotton. This is a stretch fleece. And so it has a fleece on the inside. It's really soft, a little fuzzy. And then the front right side of the fabric is really nice. And this does have a nice amount of stretch, but certainly not as much spandex as this one, right? Then you have something like a linen blend. So this is a knit and it has some stretch, but not a significant amount of stretch. And if you feel and touch it, it has more of a stable feel than it does something like this, right? So this is really drapey. This is drapey too, but maybe not as much. And then you have things like pontes, right? Or a double knit. These are very thick. This is a heavier weight knit. It does have a nice amount of stretch, but it's also thicker. And so you would use this for maybe a bodycon dress or a structured garment, like maybe a knit blazer or maybe some knit slacks. That would be really great out of this. So you still have the comfort, but you have the thickness of a woven fabric. So these are called like more of a stable knit. Now, there are instances where I will see a pattern that calls for a woven fabric, and I will choose to make it out of a thicker, stable knit. But you also have to be aware of things that you need to do to that knit fabric to make it behave the way a woven fabric would. So until you get more versed in fabrics and how to use them and how to pair them to your patterns, you might just want to stick, like I said, tip number 1, to what is on the back of your pattern envelope. So now that we've talked a little bit about what fabric to look for, right, based on your pattern envelope and the recommendations that are given and some of the examples that I've shown you, let me walk you through how to read a fabric description on a fabric website. These details will help you make the right choice. Now, understanding fiber is a whole video on its own, so I'm just gonna give you a quick little overview. So the first thing you wanna look at is the fiber content. So it's gonna tell you on the website, and sometimes when you order fabric from places like Blackbird Fabrics or Core Fabrics, you get this little tag that is sent to you with your fabric, which tells you the fabric content. Now, the fabric content is important because that's going to tell you what the fabric is made of. Is it a cotton? Is it a linen? Is it a viscose linen blend? Is it a rayon? Is it a lyocell? Is it all the things? Okay, so that's the first thing you want to look at. So cotton, for example, is soft, it's breathable, it's easy to sew with. Now, if it says polyester, we know that polyester has come a long way over the years and it's not as terrible and itchy and gross as it once used to be. So polyester is wrinkle resistant, which makes it great if you travel a lot and you need to fold it up and put it in your luggage. It's durable, but it's definitely less breathable. Then we have linen, which is great for summers because it's light and it's airy, but it wrinkles a lot. Now, some linens that have blends tend to wrinkle less than 100% linen, but it does wrinkle. So this linen viscose blend, if I crunch it up, some wrinkles, not terrible. This 100% linen, if I wrinkle it up, is wrinkled, child, is wrinkled, okay? So they do wrinkle differently. This one, obviously it's a blend, so it's gonna wrinkle less, where this is 100% linen and it's gonna wrinkle more. But it's sort of the look of the garment, you know what I'm saying? If you're wearing linen, linen's gonna wrinkle and it's kind of a vibe, kind of works. Then you have rayons and viscose, and these are very flowy, very drapey. Some have a silky feel, and they can be a little tricky to sew with. And then of course there's spandex and lycra, which is what's added to the fabric to make it stretch. So if you want something that's soft and breathable, then you might want to stick to natural fibers like cottons and linens. If you want something that's a little more durable, then you would go with something like a rayon or a viscose, a lyocell, or a polyester. Now, there is a lot more than what I just covered in fiber, but like I said, that's a whole video in itself, and I'm just trying to give you an overall view to make shopping online a little bit easier. So you're going to look for the fiber content because you want to know what that fabric is made of. Then you're going to want to start learning what GSM means. That is the weight of the fabric, and that is very important to know. Now, GSM stands for grams per square meter. So you want to be able to easily identify by looking at the number that's given. Is this going to be a lightweight fabric? Is it a medium weight fabric? Is it a heavyweight fabric? Sometimes in the description of the fabric, they will say, this is a lightweight fabric, this is a medium weight fabric, this is a heavyweight fabric. And depending on the website, the description can give you almost everything that you need because it will tell you this would work great for flowy tops and dresses, but not all websites do that. So if you're wondering, how do I know what lightweight, medium weight, heavyweight is based on this GSM number, I'm gonna tell you. So if you want lightweight, you're gonna look for a number that's between 100 and 150. This is gonna be great for blouses, dresses, linings, lightweight dresses, anything that you want drapey and flowy, you wanna stick to lightweight. So a medium weight fabric is gonna be between 150 and 250. Obviously, the higher the number, the heavier the fabric. And this is going to be great for shirts or pants or anything a little more structured like everyday wear. Heavyweight is 250 and up generally. And you're looking at coats, heavy denim, upholstery fabric, coatings, those types of things. Another really important thing to look at is fabric width. Okay, so we've got the fabric description, we have the fabric content, meaning the fiber, what it's made out of, cotton, linen, whatever. And then we have the GSM, which is going to be the weight of the fabric so that you can gauge. You're not going to want to buy a medium weight fabric if you're making a lightweight flowy top. And then you're going to pay attention to the fabric width. Now, why is this important? The fabric width is important because when you get a pattern and you look at the cutting layout, it's going to tell you if you're using 45-inch wide fabric, you're going to place your pattern pieces this way. If you're looking at 58 to 60, you're going to place your patterns this way. But beyond that, the most important thing about the width is it tells you how much fabric you need to buy. So if you look at the back of the pattern envelope, it's going to tell you the fabric 58 to 60 inches wide, you're going to need 2.5 yards. If you're using 45-inch width fabric, you're going to need 3 yards, right? Because it's narrower, so you're going to need more to be able to cut that pattern out of it. So I always try to buy fabric that is anywhere between 58 and 60 inches wide, because I know that I could buy less fabric and still get my pattern pieces on there, as opposed to buying 45-inch wide fabric where I'm going to need to buy more yardage. Now you might want to also look if it's listed for what the opacity is. Is it sheer? Is it semi-sheer? If it's a semi-sheer or sheer garment that you're making, it might need a lining, right? Unless you just want to be sheer. But for the most part, you're going to need to line it with something if it's too sheer. And so you want to make sure that you're paying attention to the opacity. And usually it's listed in the description if it's sheer or semi-sheer. Now, I showed you this before, but this is what I mean by this is a sheer fabric. You can see my shoulder right through it. Where the rayon, for example, is still lightweight, but definitely not sheer or semi-sheer, and you cannot see through it. Now you also want to pay attention to keywords that are in the description, like crisp or structured. That means that it's going to hold its shape. So things like poplin or taffeta. Soft or drapey. That means it's going to flow nicely and drape nicely. It's probably a lighter weight fabric, much like a rayon or a silky fabric or a viscose or any of those things. If it says stretchy, then you know that it has some form of lycra or spandex in it and it's going to stretch. So now that you know how to read the fabric descriptions and the things to look out for when you're reading that fabric description, now we're going to move on to how to identify fabric types and content. Now, another really great thing that I should say before we move on is a lot of sites now, fabric shops online, will show you a video. We used to do this with melanated fabric. We would do a video of us playing with the fabric, very much like this, so that you can see how it drapes, how it falls, how it moves, what the weight is. You can sort of tell by looking at it and seeing if is it moving easily, is it more stiff, is it structured. So videos are really great. I think all fabric websites should have videos. Now, to identify fabric, like let's say you have a fabric and you have absolutely no idea what the fabric content is, you can always do something like a burn test. Now, different fibers burn in different ways. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you are in a safe place before you do a burn test, okay? You want to make sure that you're near a sink or water, or do it outside. Have something to immediately be able to turn off the flame, okay? Please be very careful when doing a burn test. Now, natural fibers like cottons and linens burn quickly, and they leave sort of a soft ash, and it smells a little like burning paper. Now, things like wool and silk burn slower, and they kind of smell like burnt hair, and they leave an ash, but it's more of a like brittle sort of ash. Okay, so polyester and nylon, for example, they don't burn, they melt, and it smells like melting plastic. And they will leave no ash. Instead, it'll leave like a more hard little bead, sort of like if you were melting plastic. Now there are things like rayon, which burn very similar to cotton, but can have a sort of a chemical smell to them when you do the burn test. So overall, if it melts, it's not a natural fiber. If it burns, it's probably a natural fiber. But remember that you have blends, and so you might get a mixture of both depending on what the blend is. Now you also, depending on what you're working on, you want to make sure that you're looking for things that might say shine or lustrous or a sheen. That just means that it's going to have a sort of shiny appearance to it, which I mentioned, right? So something like this, which is shiny, versus a linen, a wool, a cotton, which is going to be matte. Now that's important because anything that has a sheen or says shiny could mean that it's going to be a bit slippery. And so if you're new to sewing, you might want to stay away from anything that is slippery. Now you can always order fabric swatches if your online fabric store offers them. Sometimes they will just send you a little square of it. Sometimes they send you a little bigger piece, which I always appreciate. And I mean, sometimes they offer free fabric swatches if you're making a purchase. So I know that when Brittany and I had melanated fabrics, if you ordered a certain amount of fabric, we would send you a couple of swatches if you asked for them. So swatches are great because you can order a swatch and you can sort of feel and touch the fabric before ordering however much you need it. So let's say you need 3 yards and you order 3 yards, you get it not exactly what you wanted or needed because you haven't followed all of the tips and recommendations I gave you in this video. And now you have 3 yards of fabric. Doesn't mean you can't use it. You just probably won't be able to use it for the project that you had in mind. So ordering a fabric swatch, yes, delays the process because you have to wait for the fabric swatch to arrive before you look at it and decide, is this what I want for my project? And then you have to order the fabric and wait for that to arrive. But it does make a difference. And if you're completely new to buying fabric online, this could be a really great option. Now, one of the things that I recommend to all the students in Sew It Academy, and it's one of the things that we cover in the very first few courses, is how to identify fabric and then how to create a swatch book. So this is really important because this is going to help you to be able to identify fabric when you're looking online if you have a similar swatch at home in your swatch book. Now, this doesn't need to be fancy. This could literally be a notebook where you staple the fabric to it and then write down the content of it. Is it 70% viscose and 30% this, 10% that, 5% this, is it 100%, whatever. That's all the information that you want to write in there because it's going to make a big difference. And if you're ordering something online and you can sort of see similar content to something you already have in your swatch book, then you're making a more informed decision because it's probably going to look, feel, and behave very much like the swatch that you have. So, I always save these little cards that are given to me when I order fabric, like I said, from Blackbird, Core Fabric. Mood doesn't always send it. So what I will do is if I order something online from Mood or from another fabric store that doesn't send you these amazing little cards, then I will write down the information in the notebook. And then when my fabric arrives, I will cut a little piece of it and then attach it to whatever piece of paper I'm working with, or my notebook or my fabric swatch book. And I will link down below to a PDF that I have of a printable fabric swatch page that you could just punch 3 holes on it and then create your own little binder. So the Blackbird cards always have the name of what I ordered. It has the color, it has the content, right? So in this case, this was 100% cotton, and it tells me the width. And then, ever so kindly, they provide you care instructions: machine wash cold, tumble dry low, do not bleach, iron medium. These are very helpful, and I always keep these with a little swatch of the fabric, okay, so that I can put it in my swatch book later and know exactly what it is. So that way, when I'm ordering something online and I'm not quite sure what it's gonna be. I mean, that doesn't really happen to me now because I know them, but if you're new, this is definitely something you need to do. And the more you do this and the bigger your fabric swatch collection gets, the easier it will be for you to be able to identify fabric when you're shopping online. Core Fabric is another website I shop from, and they also provide you with the card. Again, this one has the name on it. It has the color, the fiber, the width, and in this case, it has the weight. So this told me what the weight was. So this is 230 GSM. This was a heavier, this is a textured viscose linen, so it was a heavier linen. And so I know that when I keep this, and I save my little fabric swatch, when I'm looking at something similar and I'm like, I wonder what 230 GSM feels like. Bam, I have a fabric swatch. Do you see where I'm going with this? Okay, this is very important, something you should absolutely be doing. Understanding, like I said. So I hope all of these tips have helped you to make a more confident online purchase for fabric, and of course support all of these independent fabric stores. It is not easy to have an online fabric store or a brick and mortar store. It's getting even harder. So we have to do our very best to support our independent businesses so that we can keep this hobby going, right? So that we can keep buying fabric and buying notions and really doing what we love. If there's anything else you want to know about shopping for fabric, or maybe you want to share with me what your biggest struggle is, let me know in the comments below. I hope you found this video helpful. I mentioned in Monday's video that I am going to be taking the month of April off. I am doing a social media cleanse for 1 month, 31 days, okay? And I am going to be creating, and I am going to be working on projects that I am excited to bring to you in May, but you will not be seeing much of me on YouTube, definitely not on Instagram. I might do a live here and there on YouTube on Fridays. So if I do, you will see me going live. But for the most part, I am going to take a break and really work on some really great projects that I have going on and that I am excited about. Thank you guys so much for always watching and for your incredible support, and I will see you guys again soon.